Princess Alexandra sat in the morning room of her Kensington Palace apartment, sunlight streaming through the tall windows as she carefully examined the contents of an ornate mahogany jewelry box. The 87-year-old cousin of Queen Elizabeth, too, had been entrusted with something far more precious than the jewels themselves, a promise made to her late aunt. The Queen Mother. Decades earlier, the box contained some of the most intimate pieces from the Queen Mother's personal collection, items that had never been part of the crown jewels or state regalia. These were the pieces Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon had worn during her most private moments, gifts from her beloved husband, King George VI, and treasures she had specifically requested remain within the family's inner circle. Alexandra's weathered hands trembled slightly as she lifted a delicate sapphire brooch, remembering the day the Queen Mother had shown it to her in 1995. "This one was George's favorite on me," the Queen Mother had whispered, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "He said it matched my eyes when I was cross with him." The memory brought a sad smile to Alexandra's face, knowing that her aunt had trusted her with far more than jewelry that day. The conversation had taken place during one of their regular afternoon teas, when the Queen Mother was already in her 90s but still sharp as a pin. She had pulled Alexandra aside after the other family members had left, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "My dear girl, I need to ask something important of you," she had said, gesturing toward the jewelry box. "These pieces, they're not for state occasions or publicity. They're for family, for the women who will carry our legacy forward with grace." What made that conversation so significant was what the Queen Mother didn't say directly, but what Alexandra understood perfectly. The elderly royal had serious concerns about how her personal collection might be handled after her death, particularly if certain individuals gained control over distribution decisions. The Queen Mother had always been diplomatic in public, but privately, she was known for her strong opinions about family matters and protocol. Alexandra had watched the family dynamics carefully over the years, particularly after Charles married Camilla in 2005. While she maintained cordial relationships with everyone, she couldn't ignore the subtle tensions that existed within the royal household. The Queen Mother's instructions had been clear, though delivered with her characteristic subtlety. These particular pieces were meant for those who embodied the traditional values and dignity of the monarchy. The weight of responsibility had grown heavier. Since Queen Elizabeth II's death in 2022, Alexandra knew that King Charles III was focused on streamlining the monarchy and establishing his reign, which meant many family traditions and informal arrangements were being reevaluated. The informal nature of her guardianship over these jewels meant they existed in a gray area of royal protocol. As she sat in her apartment, Alexandra thought about Catherine, the Princess of Wales, over the years. She had watched William's wife navigate royal duties with remarkable grace and dedication. Catherine had shown genuine respect for royal traditions while bringing fresh energy to the monarchy. More importantly, she had earned the affection of the British public and demonstrated the kind of character the Queen Mother had valued above all else. The timing felt crucial. Alexandra had noticed increasing speculation in the media about how royal collections would be redistributed under the new reign. There were whispers about modernizing approaches to royal jewelry, with some suggesting that pieces should be shared more democratically among family members or even eventually displayed in museums rather than worn by working royals. Alexandra understood the political implications of her decision. Any transfer of significant jewelry would be noticed and analyzed by royal watchers and media outlets. The Queen Mother's personal collection, while not technically part of the crown jewels, still held enormous sentimental and historical value. Every piece told a story of British royal history, from the abdication crisis through World War II and beyond. The princess had always prided herself on staying above family politics, but she recognized this situation required decisive action. The Queen Mother's wishes had been clear, even if they hadn't been formalized in legal documents. Alexandra's role as keeper of these treasures was based on trust and understanding rather than official appointment, which gave her both freedom and responsibility to act according to her conscience. She closed the jewelry box carefully, her mind made up. Tomorrow, she would reach out to Catherine's private secretary to arrange a discreet meeting. The transfer needed to happen soon while Alexandra still had the energy and authority to fulfill her promise. The Queen Mother had trusted her to ensure these precious pieces found their way to the right hands, and Princess Alexandra intended to honor that trust completely. Catherine, Princess of Wales, received the unexpected invitation on a Tuesday morning while reviewing her weekly schedule at Adelaide Cottage. Her private secretary, Hannah, approached with an unusually formal expression, holding a cream-colored envelope bearing Princess Alexandra's personal seal. "Ma'am, Princess Alexandra has requested a private audience at her earliest convenience," Hannah explained, noting the unusual nature of the request. She suggested this Friday afternoon and specifically asked that the meeting remain confidential for now. Catherine felt a flutter of curiosity mixed with slight concern. Princess Alexandra, while always warm and welcoming at family gatherings, rarely requested private meetings. The 87-year-old royal was known for her discretion and independence. Living quietly at Thatched House Lodge in Richmond Park and maintaining a low public profile despite her significant role in royal history, Friday afternoon found Catherine driving herself to Kensington Palace, having deliberately chosen not to use her usual official car and security detail for this meeting. She wanted to respect Alexandra's request for discretion. Sensing that whatever prompted this invitation required the utmost privacy, Princess Alexandra greeted Catherine at the door personally, another unusual gesture that emphasized the importance of their meeting. The elderly royal's eyes held a mixture of warmth and determination that Catherine had rarely seen before. After exchanging pleasantries over tea, Alexandra guided her guest to a quiet sitting room overlooking the palace gardens. "My dear Catherine," Alexandra began, her voice carrying the weight of decades of royal experience, "I've asked you here because I have something important to entrust to you. Something that connects to promises made long ago and responsibilities that transcend normal family arrangements." Catherine listened intently as Alexandra shared the story of her conversation with the Queen Mother in 1995. The elderly princess spoke carefully but candidly about the Queen Mother's concerns and her specific wishes regarding her personal jewelry collection. Catherine found herself deeply moved by the trust being placed in her, but also aware of the complex family dynamics involved. "I need you to understand," Alexandra continued, "these pieces aren't just jewelry. They represent the Queen Mother's most personal memories and her hopes for the future of our family's traditions. She was very particular about wanting them to go to someone who would honor both their history and their intended purpose." Catherine felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She understood that accepting this trust would place her in a delicate position within the family hierarchy. The jewelry represented more than material wealth. It symbolized continuity, tradition, and the Queen Mother's personal blessing for the future direction of the monarchy. Alexandra opened the mahogany box slowly, revealing pieces that Catherine had never seen before. Each item was exquisite, but what struck her most was their intimate nature. These weren't state jewels meant for grand occasions, but personal treasures that spoke of private moments and deep emotions. A pearl necklace with a small diamond clasp, sapphire earrings that caught the afternoon light, a delicate gold bracelet with tiny charms representing family milestones. "The Queen Mother always said that jewelry should tell a story," Alexandra explained, lifting a beautiful emerald ring. This one was her engagement ring from the Duke of York. Before he became King George VI, she wore it every day until she died, even when arthritis made it difficult. Catherine understood the significance of what was being offered to her. These pieces would connect her directly to one of the most beloved figures in modern royal history, but they would also place her at the center of potential family tensions. She thought about William and how he would react, knowing his deep respect for his great-grandmother's memory. "Princess Alexandra," Catherine said carefully, "I'm deeply honored that you would consider me worthy of this trust, but I need to understand the full implications. These pieces, while not part of the crown jewels, still represent significant family heritage. Alexandra nodded approvingly at Catherine's thoughtful response. "That's precisely why the Queen Mother wanted them to go to someone like you," she replied. "Someone who understands that privilege comes with responsibility, and that our family's treasures are held in trust for future generations." The conversation continued for over an hour, with Alexandra sharing memories and stories connected to various pieces. Catherine began to understand that this wasn't simply about jewelry, but about preserving the Queen Mother's legacy and ensuring that her values would continue to influence the monarchy's future direction. As the afternoon drew to a close, Catherine found herself accepting the responsibility, though she insisted on time to consider how best to handle the situation diplomatically. Alexandra smiled with evident relief, knowing that her decades-long guardianship of these treasures would soon pass to capable hands. "There's one more thing," Alexandra said as Catherine prepared to leave. "The Queen Mother always believed that timing was everything in royal matters. She had an instinct for when action was needed and when patience was required. I believe this is one of those moments when action is necessary." The following week, Catherine found herself in an unprecedented situation as she carefully planned how to approach the delicate matter of the jewelry transfer. She knew that any significant movement of royal treasures, even personal ones, could create ripples throughout the palace hierarchy and beyond. The challenge was executing Princess Alexandra's wishes while maintaining family harmony and royal protocol. Catherine decided to confide in William first, knowing that his support would be crucial for any plan to succeed. That evening, after their children were settled for the night at Adelaide Cottage, she shared the details of her meeting with Princess Alexandra. William listened intently, his expression growing more thoughtful as Catherine explained the historical significance of the jewelry and the Queen Mother's original intentions. "Granny would have wanted this," William said finally, referring to Queen Elizabeth II. "She always respected the Queen Mother's wishes, even when they created complicated situations." He paused, understanding the potential implications. "But we need to be extremely careful about how this is handled. The timing is sensitive and the family dynamics are complex right now." William's biggest concern wasn't the jewelry itself, but the potential for misunderstanding within the family. King Charles III was working hard to establish his reign and modernize certain aspects of the monarchy. Any action that could be perceived as undermining the new king's authority or creating factions within the family needed to be avoided at all costs. Catherine and William spent several evenings discussing the best approach. They considered informing King Charles directly but worried that formal channels might lead to delays or complications that could prevent Alexandra from fulfilling her promise. They also knew that Camilla, as the new queen consort, might have her own expectations regarding access to royal jewelry collections. The couple ultimately decided on a strategy that would honor both the Queen Mother's wishes and current family relationships. Catherine would accept the jewelry from Princess Alexandra in a private ceremony, but would immediately offer to share access to the collection with other family members for appropriate occasions. This approach would preserve the jewelry's intended purpose, while avoiding any appearance of exclusivity or favoritism. Meanwhile, word of unusual activity around Princess Alexandra had begun to circulate within royal staff circles. Longtime palace employees noticed increased privacy measures around her apartment and several mysterious meetings with jewelers and security experts. The royal household's informal network of information sharing meant that rumors were beginning to develop. Though few people understood the full scope of what was happening, Camilla's private secretary had heard whispers about significant family arrangements being made, but the details remained frustratingly vague. The queen consort had her own relationship with royal jewelry, having been gradually given access to various pieces since her marriage to Charles. She understood the symbolic importance of these accessories in establishing royal status and maintaining public perception. Catherine realized that transparency, rather than secrecy, might be the best approach to prevent misunderstandings. She arranged a private lunch with Camilla, ostensibly to discuss upcoming royal engagements but actually to gauge the queen consort's feelings about family jewelry arrangements. The conversation proved enlightening, as Camilla expressed her own sometimes complicated relationship with royal protocol and traditions. "The jewelry is lovely." "Of course," Camilla confided during their lunch at Clarence's house, "but sometimes I feel like I'm wearing history that doesn't quite belong to me yet. Charles keeps encouraging me to see these pieces as family treasures rather than personal accessories, which I appreciate, but it takes time to feel comfortable with that level of responsibility." Catherine sensed an opportunity in Camilla's honesty. Rather than viewing the jewelry situation as a potential conflict, she began to see it as a chance to strengthen family relationships and establish new traditions that honored both the past and the present. She decided to be more direct about the Queen Mother's jewelry, though carefully framing it within the context of family legacy rather than personal inheritance. "Actually, that's something I wanted to discuss with you," Catherine said carefully. "Princess Alexandra has been sharing some wonderful stories about the Queen Mother's personal collection, and I think there might be opportunities for all of us to honor that legacy together." The conversation that followed surprised both women. Camilla proved to be remarkably understanding about the historical significance of the Queen Mother's wishes, and even expressed appreciation for Catherine's thoughtful approach to the situation. Rather than viewing it as a potential slight, she saw it as an opportunity to demonstrate her respect for royal traditions and family harmony. By the end of their lunch, Catherine had gained an unexpected ally. Camilla agreed that Princess Alexandra's guardianship of the Queen Mother's personal jewelry should be respected, and that any transfer of these pieces should be handled with appropriate ceremony and family acknowledgement. She even offered to help ensure that King Charles understood the historical context and importance of honoring the Queen Mother's original intentions. This development changed Catherine's entire approach to the situation. Instead of a discreet transfer that might cause future complications, she began planning for a family celebration of the Queen Mother's legacy that would include the jewelry presentation as part of a larger commemoration of royal history and tradition. The plan that emerged from Catherine's conversations with William and Camilla was both elegant and diplomatically sound. Rather than a secret transfer, they would organize a family gathering to commemorate the Queen Mother's legacy, with the jewelry presentation as the centerpiece of the celebration. This approach would honor Princess Alexandra's promise while ensuring that all family members understood and supported the decision. King Charles agreed to the gathering after Camilla explained the historical significance of the Queen Mother's personal collection and Princess Alexandra's role as its guardian. The king appreciated the opportunity to demonstrate his respect for family traditions while also establishing precedents for how such matters would be handled during his reign. He suggested holding the event at Clarence's house, where the Queen Mother had lived for nearly 50 years. Princess Alexandra felt enormous relief as the plans developed. At her age, the responsibility of safeguarding the jewelry collection had become increasingly stressful, particularly as she worried about what might happen to the pieces if she became unable to care for them properly. The family gathering would allow her to transfer this responsibility with dignity and ensure that everyone understood the Queen Mother's original intentions. The guest list was kept deliberately small and intimate. In addition to Charles, Camilla, William, and Catherine, the gathering would include Princess Anne, Prince Edward, Sophie, and a few other close family members who had shared special relationships with the Queen Mother. Each person invited had their own memories of the beloved matriarch and understood the significance of her personal possessions. Catherine spent considerable time preparing for the event, working with Alexandra to understand the history and significance of each piece in the collection. She wanted to be able to speak knowledgeably about the jewelry and demonstrate her appreciation for the trust being placed in her. The preparation also helped her understand how to incorporate these pieces appropriately into her future royal duties. The jewelry itself proved to be even more remarkable than Catherine had initially realized. Each piece told a story not just of the Queen Mother's life, but of British royal history through the 20th century. There were gifts from foreign dignitaries, pieces commissioned for special occasions, and family heirlooms that connected the Queen Mother to previous generations of royalty. One particularly meaningful piece was a diamond tiara that had belonged to the Queen Mother's mother, Lady Strathmore. The tiara had been worn at the Queen Mother's wedding to the Duke of York in 1923 and represented a direct link to the family's pre-royal history. Princess Alexandra explained that the Queen Mother had always intended this piece to be passed down to future generations of royal wives, seeing it as a symbol of the continuity that marriage brought to the monarchy. As the day of the gathering approached, Catherine found herself thinking deeply about the responsibilities she was accepting. These weren't just beautiful objects, but tangible connections to one of the most significant figures in modern British history. The Queen Mother had lived through 2 world wars, the abdication crisis, and the transformation of the British Empire into the Commonwealth. Her jewelry had witnessed these historic events and would now become part of Catherine's own story. The media remained unaware of the specific plans, though royal correspondents had begun to notice increased activity around Clarence House and speculation about a possible family announcement. Palace press officers carefully managed inquiries, describing the upcoming event only as a private family gathering to celebrate the Queen Mother's legacy. William proved to be an invaluable source of support during the preparation period. His own memories of his great-grandmother helped Catherine understand the emotional significance of the jewelry transfer. He shared stories of the Queen Mother's legendary sense of style and her belief that royal accessories should enhance rather than overshadow the person wearing them. Gengen always said that jewelry should make you feel more confident, not more constrained, William told Catherine, using his childhood nickname for the Queen Mother. She believed that beautiful things were meant to be worn and enjoyed, not locked away in vaults. I think she would be delighted to know that her collection will continue to be part of royal life rather than becoming museum pieces. The evening before the gathering, Princess Alexandra made one final review of the jewelry collection, ensuring that each piece was properly cleaned and presented. She had prepared detailed notes about the provenance and significance of each item, creating a permanent record that would help Catherine understand and preserve the collection's history. As she worked, Alexandra reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. Nearly 30 years had passed since the Queen Mother had entrusted her with this responsibility, and she had carried it faithfully through all the changes and challenges the royal family had faced. Tomorrow she would finally fulfill her promise and ensure that the Queen Mother's wishes were honored. The anticipation building around the gathering had created a sense of excitement and unity within the family that hadn't been felt for some time. Rather than creating division or controversy, the jewelry transfer was bringing family members together around their shared respect for the Queen Mother's memory and their commitment to preserving royal traditions for future generations. The day of the gathering dawned bright and clear, as if nature itself was blessing the occasion. Clarence House, the Queen Mother's beloved home for nearly 5 decades, seemed to welcome the family back with its familiar warmth and elegance. The morning room where she had held countless audiences and family meetings had been prepared with fresh flowers and photographs celebrating her remarkable life. Catherine arrived early, accompanied by William, both dressed in understated elegance that reflected the solemnity of the occasion. She wore a simple navy dress with pearl earrings, choosing accessories that would complement rather than compete with the historic jewelry she would soon receive. Her nervousness was evident only to William, who squeezed her hand reassuringly as they entered the house, where so much royal history had unfolded. Princess Alexandra appeared remarkably composed despite the emotional significance of the day. She had chosen to wear one of the Queen Mother's favorite brooches, a delicate spray of diamonds and sapphires that sparkled in the afternoon light. The symbolic gesture wasn't lost on the family members who remembered seeing the Queen Mother wear that same piece to countless engagements over the years. King Charles opened the gathering with heartfelt remarks about his grandmother's enduring influence on the royal family and the nation. He spoke of her courage during the Second World War, her dedication to public service, and her extraordinary ability to connect with people from all walks of life. The king's words set a tone of reverence and celebration that honored both the Queen Mother's memory and the significance of the day's ceremony. My grandmother always believed that our family's treasures were held in trust for the nation and for future generations, Charles said, his voice carrying deep emotion. Today, we continue that tradition by ensuring that her most personal possessions find their way to hands that will honor her memory and her values. Princess Alexandra then rose to address the gathering, her voice clear and strong despite her advanced age. She spoke about her special relationship with the Queen Mother and the conversation that had taken place nearly 30 years earlier. The room fell silent as she shared details that most family members had never heard before, creating a deeper understanding of the Queen Mother's intentions and concerns. She was very specific about wanting these pieces to go to someone who understood that being royal isn't about privilege, but about service, Alexandra explained. She wanted them worn by someone who would represent the best values of our family and our nation. After watching Catherine over the years, I know that the Queen Mother would be delighted with this decision. The presentation ceremony itself was both formal and intimate. Each piece of jewelry was brought out individually, with Princess Alexandra sharing its history and significance. Catherine listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that demonstrated her genuine appreciation for the trust being placed in her. The other family members watched with evident pleasure, clearly supportive of the decision and moved by the stories behind each precious item. When the diamond tiara that had belonged to the Queen Mother's mother was presented, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Princess Anne, who had been particularly close to her grandmother, spoke about how the Queen Mother had always intended that piece to connect future generations to their family history. The tiara represented not just beautiful craftsmanship, but the continuity of royal traditions across generations. Catherine's response to receiving the collection was graceful and heartfelt. She spoke about the honor of being entrusted with pieces that had meant so much to the Queen Mother, and her commitment to wearing them in a way that would honor both their history and their intended purpose. She also made a point of thanking Princess Alexandra for her decades of faithful guardianship. I understand that I'm not receiving these pieces as personal possessions, but as custodian for the next generation, Catherine said. I promise to care for them as the Queen Mother would have wanted, and to ensure that they continue to serve the monarchy and the nation. The afternoon concluded with tea served on the Queen Mother's favorite china, accompanied by stories and memories shared by all the family members present. The atmosphere was one of celebration rather than mourning, focusing on the Queen Mother's continuing influence rather than her absence. Princess Alexandra looked visibly relieved and happy, knowing that she had fulfilled her promise and ensured that the Queen Mother's wishes would be honored. As the gathering ended, each family member took time to personally thank Princess Alexandra for her faithful service as guardian of the collection. King Charles privately expressed his appreciation for the way the entire situation had been handled, noting that it demonstrated how family traditions could be honored while maintaining unity and respect. Among all family members, the success of the gathering exceeded everyone's expectations. What could have been a source of tension or controversy had instead become an opportunity to celebrate family history and reinforce bonds between family members. The careful planning and diplomatic approach had ensured that Princess Alexandra's promise was fulfilled while strengthening rather than dividing the royal family. In the weeks following the jewelry ceremony, the effects of Princess Alexandra's decision rippled through royal circles in ways that surprised everyone involved. Rather than creating the tensions that some had feared, the event had generated a new sense of unity and purpose within the family. The careful way the situation had been handled became a model for how sensitive family matters could be addressed with respect for both tradition and contemporary relationships. Catherine's first public appearance wearing one of the Queen Mother's pieces came during a state visit from the President of France. She chose the sapphire brooch that had been King George VI's favorite, pairing it with an elegant blue dress that perfectly complemented the historic jewelry. Royal correspondents immediately noticed the addition to her jewelry collection, and palace officials were prepared with the story of Princess Alexandra's gift. and its connection to family tradition, the public response was overwhelmingly positive. British citizens appreciated seeing the Queen Mother's jewelry back in active use rather than hidden away in vaults. Social media buzzed with admiration for Catherine's respectful approach to wearing historic pieces, and fashion experts praised her ability to make vintage jewelry look contemporary and relevant. The coverage reinforced Catherine's reputation as someone who honored royal traditions while bringing fresh energy to her role. Princess Alexandra experienced a profound sense of peace following the successful transfer. For the first time in decades, she no longer carried the weight of protecting the Queen Mother's collection. She could see that Catherine was taking her new responsibility seriously, carefully researching the appropriate occasions for each piece and ensuring that their historical significance was properly acknowledged. The elderly princess had also been touched by the family support throughout the process. King Charles had privately thanked her for her faithful service as guardian of the collection and had indicated that similar arrangements might be made for other family treasures that existed outside official palace inventories. This suggested that Princess Alexandra's approach could become a template for preserving family heritage in future generations. Camilla's gracious support of the jewelry transfer had unexpected benefits for her own relationship with the royal family and the public. Her willingness to support Catherine's guardianship of the Queen Mother's collection was seen as evidence of her genuine commitment to family harmony and respect for royal traditions. Royal commentators noted that her approach demonstrated growing confidence in her role as queen consort and her understanding of how to balance personal feelings with institutional needs. The jewelry itself began to play a more visible role in royal engagements. Catherine worked with her stylist to ensure that each piece was worn appropriately and that its history was properly documented for palace records. She also began incorporating stories about the Queen Mother into her public remarks when wearing the jewelry, helping to keep the beloved royal's memory alive in public consciousness. William watched with pride as Catherine embraced her new role as custodian of family history. He particularly appreciated her decision to involve their children in learning about the jewelry's significance, ensuring that the next generation would understand their connection to royal heritage. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis were fascinated by the stories behind each piece and began to see the jewelry as tangible links to their great-great-grandmother's remarkable life. The success of the arrangement also had implications for other royal collections and family treasures. Palace officials began reviewing how various inherited items were stored and maintained, with an eye toward ensuring that future generations would have access to their family heritage. Princess Alexandra's model of temporary guardianship, followed by ceremonial transfer, offered a framework for handling similar situations. As months passed, it became clear that Princess Alexandra's decision had achieved everything the Queen Mother had hoped for. The jewelry was being worn by someone who understood its significance, cared for with appropriate respect, and used to honor royal traditions while serving contemporary purposes. Catherine's thoughtful approach to wearing these pieces had actually enhanced their historical importance, rather than diminishing it. The media attention surrounding the jewelry gradually settled into a comfortable routine. Royal correspondents learned to recognize pieces from the Queen Mother's collection and understood their significance, often including brief historical notes in their coverage of Catherine's appearances. This ongoing education helped the public develop a deeper appreciation for royal history and the continuity represented by family treasures. Princess Alexandra's final reflection on the entire experience came during a quiet evening at her apartment. As she looked through photograph albums filled with images of the Queen Mother wearing the jewelry that now graced Catherine's appearances, she felt confident that she had honored her promise completely, and that the Queen Mother would be delighted to see her treasures continuing to serve the monarchy's mission. The transformation of what could have been a divisive family issue into a celebration of unity and tradition represented the best of royal values. Princess Alexandra's careful guardianship Catherine's gracious acceptance of responsibility, and the family's collective support had created a new chapter in the story of the Queen Mother's legacy. The jewelry would continue to sparkle at royal events for generations to come, carrying with it the memory of one of Britain's most beloved royal figures and the wisdom of those who ensured her wishes were faithfully fulfilled.